My name is Jade, owner and principal planner of Joyful Events by Jade, and this is The Cookie Table. This is a podcast all about love, marriage, relationships, and the wedding industry, wedding news. Perfect for anyone that is getting married, is married, a wedding vendor, or someone that just loves weddings. Grab your favorite cookie from The Cookie Table, pour yourself a glass of Chardonnay, and let's get into it. Emily with Events by Emily. Thanks so much for joining me. Welcome to The Cookie Table.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for joining me. It means a lot.
Yeah.
Emily, you are a wedding planner just like myself. So
Yes.
We're planning colleagues.
Yep.
Community over competition, right? That's the
Agree. Yes.
that's the big lovely term there. So you reached out to me to get coffee and it meant so much.
Yeah.
It was so nice.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, thanks for being a planning pals. It means a lot. So tell me a little bit about you and how you got your start. Let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was married in 2017, but even before that, I've always just loved hosting events, like bringing people together, curating like a fun experience. It's always just been something that's been close to my heart. And I, with all my vendors for my wedding, I hired Loyalty Entertainment, and we got along really, really well. They actually taught my husband and I our first dance, which was really cool. Yeah, so much fun. And then probably like 6 months after my wedding, his wife, Nicole, and I were talking, and she was like, do you want to work for us and, do some event planning for couples who want a day of coordinator? And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize like that was a legitimate thing.
Yeah.
And so, I, did a lot of research, and then basically I started with them, and it was just like on the job training, which was so cool. Probably did about 10 events with them that year. And then it kind of blew up so big.
Yeah.
I was getting so many inquiries, and she was like, honestly, they were branching out, doing photo, video, other things. And she was like, I think it's actually, more beneficial for you to go on your own.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And it was nerve wracking because then it was 2020. So it got really crazy. So I was nervous, but honestly, we had so many tent weddings. So I was thrown into that. But it was a good way to get started.
Sure the hell is. You learn a lot when someone has a tent at a wedding. You learn everything.
You can do a DIY tent wedding. You can do anything. Yeah, you know.
You can.
There's so much with that. So, and here we are that many years later. I'm like almost 5. Yeah.
So you survived COVID. I think that's like one of the biggest things. If you could do that, then you're amazing. So way to go.
Crazy.
Now, are you Pittsburgh born and raised?
So yeah, just outside the city, but yeah, basically.
Okay. So you're very familiar with obviously having a cookie table at your wedding.
You can't not have a cookie table. It's like sacrilegious if you do that. Like growing up, it was just, that was always like the staple. I feel like that was always the one thing you had at the wedding. And
your favorite cookie is very kind of Pittsburgh staple-y because it's very Polish.
It is Polish. Yeah.
I don't know how the hell to say that. I say it wrong all the time. Do you know?
I think it's kolachy. I think there's different ways to say it though.
Yeah, there's like 4 different terms for it.
There is. They're all like K sounding. But I had this cookie like a long time ago, and I want to say like high school, and then I learned how to make it, and it's just, I don't know, it's one of those things. So
it's your cookie.
Yeah. Thank you so much for getting them.
Oh my God, of course. And thank you, Grandview Bakery, of course, for providing this week's cookies as well. And there is no wine pairing, instead pairing with coffee. I do have a line. We record this at any given time of the day, and it is 10:30 in the morning. So
yes.
I won't force Emily into drinking wine with me. But anything noon and later is fair game. Noon and later is fair game. We'll have our wine next time.
Yes.
But
perfect.
Thank you for the coffee. It's delicious.
Yeah.
It's perfect. So tell me about your kind of style. Do you consider yourself to be a luxury planner?
So yes,
Okay.
even though that term sometimes turns a lot of people off. The style that I do is luxury.
Yep.
So, and that can mean different things to different people. A lot of people associate that with dollar signs, and that's not necessarily what it is. It's more of a curated personal experience. we're really we're catering to that guest experience. We're handpicking, vendors for you. We're doing, it's a lot more than just coordinating on the day of and coordinating beforehand. There's a lot, design work and things like that go into it. And we also kind of consider ourselves like boutique approach. So, we don't take on as many weddings. We only take on weddings, that sort of thing. And we're also very flexible in how we work with our clients. So, yeah, I would say, luxury, but more boutique is kind of what we are, yeah.
Do you have a budget minimum that you wouldn't take on a client if they're coming at you and saying they only have X amount of money?
We do for partial and for full planning, only because, we know what it takes to make a wedding work. So we do have that minimum. But again, like it's not even a crazy minimum. It's just that these are the basic things to make it work.
Right.
And if you want those vendors that are going to be, decent quality, high-end vendors, then, that's what it's going to be.
Right. So if someone's coming at you and saying, I can do this wedding for $25,000, you're like, that's going to be nearly impossible.
Correct. Yeah.
And you're going to have crappy vendors, and then that's going to make everything not boutique-y or luxury in that sense.
Yeah,
and that's very fair.
Yes. Now, for coordination, like we do have wedding day management. So we would take a wedding on for that. But for the partial and full, it's, it's a little bit different. Yeah.
So tell me about your services a little bit more. Do you kind of have a minimum of what you will do for someone or not? So you said you have wedding day management. I have the same thing. That's our day of coordination package, essentially, right? So where do you start with that?
Like how far in advance do we start with that? Honestly, like we're very flexible in that way. So, I mean, we generally won't start until like 3 months out. But if someone's like, hey, I just want to bounce some ideas off of you, and they sign a year or, so beforehand, maybe they want to get some parts of their timeline out for, invitation purposes on their website, things like that. Of course, like I'm never going to say, no, absolutely not. Now,
that's how I am.
It's and also like they'll have to just, and I'll tell them, okay, I have to balance you kind of with like my full and partial planning clients. But for the most part, like we have wonderful clients, everyone's understanding, and they know that like wedding management, isn't as intense. So, yeah.
I will die on the hill that the term day of coordination is, I think, an awful term.
Hate it.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It makes everyone think that you can genuinely just show up on your wedding day and just run it.
Yeah.
Or take literally all of their plans, including their timeline, being the couple, should I say, and they think you can just run their timeline. And we have to put a boundary to that. Now, have you ever gotten someone that is like, hey, listen, I used to coordinate weddings before, so I can do this. I just need a responsible person on the day of.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
It's awful.
Yes. And usually if I don't vibe with that person, I'm like, so why aren't you paying, a laborer for that? Because that's, I think that
literally
that's
just
a misconception.
Yes.
Is that we're laborers.
Yeah. That's
and, like, we're not hauling out tables and chairs. We're not like, schlepping linens and things like that. There's, this is like a skilled thing. Like it takes time to understand all the aspects of a wedding, to coordinate a wedding, designing a wedding. Like there's so much to it. So typically, I would say, well, thank you so much for your time, but I don't think we're going to be a good fit.
We're not going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
And so this literally just happened to me the other day, and I have the text. It's actually kind of hilarious. So
let me hear it.
Someone texted me, and it was really nice, and it was referral from a past couple of mine that was a wedding day management couple. Great people. Like so grateful for the referral. She started to say that it was kind of a last minute thing. Their coordinator was pregnant, and she's due in a couple of weeks. So number one, I was like, well, you're now just finding out she's pregnant? She's been pregnant for close to, how many months now, but that was strange enough as it is. But when we were talking, I said, what did your other coordinator do? Do you have a timeline that's created, a venue layout, all this stuff? And she goes, she says, she starts telling me about the timing. And then she goes, setup will pretty much be all done the night before. I actually used to do coordinating myself 20 years ago. I just want a responsible, experienced person, probably from around 2 to 10, to put pies out after dinner. The caterer is bringing people to serve and clean up.
Oh, my God.
Alcohol is going to be there, but we're probably making it more self-serve. Overall, this is pretty laid back, which that sounds awful to begin with, too, right? So I said, oh, man, your day sounds really lovely.
AKA clusterfuck.
It sounds like an absolute clusterfuck. But I put my foot down very politely, and I did as politely as possible, but I said, I'll be honest, we truthfully don't typically go below our wedding day management package. And I sent the outline for that. And I said, when I first got started into weddings, I did 1 or 2 times. I followed the couple's timeline, and the day was an absolute disaster. And I mean that respectfully. The couple was unhappy, vendors were angry, and I unfortunately had my name on that. If we would do less and execute the day based off of your plans because you're a referral, we would have to have absolutely every single detail beforehand to review to ensure we are not walking into failure, essentially. Yeah. We need to know literally everything. Based on my past experience, though, I do have to double check everything and be sure if that's safe to say, fair to say. Do you think I got a response?
You know, I give you so much credit for saying it that way, because that takes balls to say that. You know, because I feel like I've just been like, oh, you know, made up something, sorry, or we got booked or whatever. And because that's hard, but I give you so much credit because I think people need to hear that, because then maybe they'll turn around and say, oh yeah, shit, you're right. Like we actually do need somebody that does have experience, that is, you know, immersed in this culture all the time, not just like, you know, once in a while, let me, because it's different than a party. It's different than, so.
And if the person coordinated something over 20 years ago, that's fantastic. But at the same time, it's like, well, 20 years ago, times do change.
Oh my God, yeah.
And when was the last time you actually coordinated something? And I'm not walking into something that was poorly planned, and then everyone turns to you with a clipboard.
Because it's going to be your fault. It's going to be your fault
no matter what.
And
they think it's your fault. And I'm just like, I'm not doing it. And it's what's crazy is there are planners that kind of do just have a true day of coordination package. And I keep finding that out. And I think a really, really common misconception is not only from couples, but vendors that, oh, you're the planner, you should know everything.
Oh, exactly. Oh my gosh.
We all have different packages and we all do things differently.
Exactly.
However, I feel like a lot of the more experienced ones kind of do have that boundary.
Yeah, probably because they've learned, like, you know, tried and true, you know. Otherwise, you're going to be putting out fires all day long. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to burn yourself out. I mean, I've been there. Probably first couple years were really hard because it was a lot of low budget weddings. You know, a lot of people were, oh, I just need this. I just want that. And they don't truly understand what it takes to do what we're doing. And
so what would you have to say to couples to make them aware that there are people out there that are truly just doing this as a hobby and kind of they just want to be a part of your wedding day versus this is someone who this is their full-time job. It's a legitimate business. They're putting everything into it. This is why you should pick me over the person that does this for a hobby. And I get that people have hobbies. That's great. But it's your wedding day, dude.
Yeah, it's your wedding day. You don't want to mess with that.
No.
Don't take that to chance. I mean, you get one of these. There's no redos. It's what we always say. You know, it's the best day of your life, most likely, or one of the best days of your life. We hope it is. But it's also the fastest day of your life. You can't leave that to chance. Hire the professional. It is so much. It's so worth it. Like that peace of mind that you have. Like, I wish I had one on my day, which is kind of embarrassing to say because I had a venue coordinator and she's fantastic. I'm actually working at my venue again in a couple weeks. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's fun.
Yes. So it all comes full circle. But we had things like a detour on our wedding day because there was construction and Google Maps was taking everybody in circles. My makeup artist got lost. My husband was trying to get ready and had to go pick her up. It was like all these things that were happening. If I would have had somebody personally for myself, you know, a lot of things I think stress would have been eased. I mean, you know, you can't help some things, but I would have felt a lot better.
I'm with you. I am so with you. So going back to, you know, planners are all different. We all have different styles. Some of us are luxury, some of us are not. So I don't consider myself luxury, but I don't have too much of like a budget restraint. So I did have a client that we did the budget after a planning fee. The budget was about $20,000. Okay. And I was like, now I would be honest, do I post photos of it anywhere? No.
I don't see the light of day.
You know, but I do. I you know, I'm like, okay, we're laid back to the point where I do want to help you. But on the other end, we're in the middle of planning a client that we are reaching about $300,000. So awesome, love being able to kind of give that whole stretch of like, it is whatever the heck you want. It is interesting though, because you don't realize how many little things are kind of different based on your experience versus mine and what we do differently. And we were talking on the phone about this the one day, about moving the card box or not.
Oh my God.
Moving the card box or not. And I think this is so interesting. So we were in a position where it wasn't me. My team was at a venue.
Yeah.
And the venue coordinator had to leave. So she had a friend come in to kind of just oversee from the venue point of view. Turns out that friend ended up being another wedding planner.
Okay.
And I guess, again, just from what my girls were saying, that wedding planner, she is considered more luxury.
Okay.
And she was talking to my girls throughout the night and kind of was like, well, I don't do this. I don't do this. I don't do this. I don't do this. And it kind of was like, holy shit, what do you do? Right?
Wow.
Like, it really was. They were like, okay. So one of the things was the mother of the bride was a very, very, very rude lady. Every now and then you get a bad mother of the bride.
It's tough.
It is so tough.
I know.
The bride was actually crying a little bit on her wedding day over a few things. Yes.
Okay.
So just to kind of preface this woman didn't seem like a great woman to begin with.
Okay.
Unfortunately. My team took it in strides and did everything they could.
Yeah.
And they were really upset because my team didn't move the card box after cocktail hour into the dinner space. There wasn't a plan for it. It was never planned. It was never talked about.
Okay.
There wasn't a good place to put it. Apparently, the mother of the bride reamed my team. Reamed them. And the other planner that was on site said, that would have never happened to me because I don't move the card box. Do you move a card box? Do you touch a card box?
So what I do is on my timeline, when I'm going through everything, I ask them, who can I defer to for questions that day? Okay. So do you have a contact like a mother, maid of honor, friend, whatever, someone that you trust? This person will be responsible for any little questions so that I'm not bothering you that day because it's your wedding day. Also, that person will move the card box, and I highly recommend this after dinner. Okay. After dinner, because usually like sometimes people forget, and so like during dinner, but then after that's kind of when the craziness could start. Yeah. Right? People drunk, whatever, things happen. Better to be safe than sorry. So I would say that 90% of the time they're good with that, and then that person will move it. But I do remind them at that time. I just say, hey.
I was going to say, do you go up and find that person?
I do find that person. Sometimes it's a headache because they're on the dance floor. I'll wait till the song's over. If they're, I'll go up and I'll say, hey, just let you know. Usually it's fine. We've never really had any issues, but I did have somebody way back when I started that said, hey, you may not want to do that because it's a huge liability. And it got me thinking that, okay, you're right. If someone would, for whatever reason, think, if something's missing and they were the person that moved it, I don't want that on me. So this is why we do it this way. And I explain that to the couple, and they're usually like, oh, that's fine, And of course, like if there's gifts on the table, I'll help move the gifts while the other person moves the card box to the bridal suite or vehicle, wherever. But that's what we do, and it seems to work really well. So maybe try that next time. But
and I think part of it is kind of going back to that luxury versus not. You could potentially have a shit ton more money in a card box.
Well, that's another thing. Yeah,
when it's luxury, and I haven't really had huge budget weddings until more this year, so it's like it made me think. So it was a good moment. It was a good moment. In the moment when it happened, we were like, well, what the hell? Like, what do you mean? Why can't I move it? But then I'm like, well, actually, this is why it's really important to have colleagues and friends of your same vendor style or your niche or your whatever, being a wedding planner, having friends, because it's like you can bounce these thoughts and ideas off of each other. But I started thinking it was more of the liability for it being luxury being more money.
Oh, I didn't even think of that, but I guess that makes sense too.
That kind of makes sense why I never thought of it as a massive liability before. I wanted to get it out of the space for the couple versus someone random hands getting on it type of thing. So it was an interesting learning moment, and I think I might have to do that more. But what I also thought was interesting, kind of thinking more about this, is I did a site visit at a country club like last week, 2 weeks ago. And the card box starts in one location, and then the venue says, we'll move it over here.
Yes, and that's I see that a lot now.
So why are venues, I guess, putting themselves to that quote unquote liability, but it's like, we're just like, no, I don't want to touch your card box.
So I don't know if there's insurance for that, or just like, you know, and it kind of sucks because, like, you know, if they're hiring us, they should trust us and everything like that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you're always going to have like bad apples in the bunch. So
That's a good point.
you know, I think
That's a good point.
I just feel better, and as long as they know what's happening. But yeah, I've seen that too, where it just gets moved to like after cocktail hour to a different, and sometimes it's like close to the door, and I'm like, oh, I'm not so comfortable with that. I want to keep an eye on that. Like, yeah, I'm sure you've seen that.
Yes, I don't know. The venue's moving. It kind of got me thinking about it a little bit more because it's just like, and that kind of goes back into my own personal laid back styles. Like, I just don't think about things like that, and that's either a great thing or a bad thing. But it's like, I don't know. I guess I will start finding someone to move the card box. I think it's a very good point, and like I said, a learning lesson overall. And I'm finding out that more and more people don't touch it. So
yeah,
I'm not the only one.
Right.
So while we're still on the topic of talking about our styles and being wedding planners, we're both pretty similar in being flexible with our clients, because I know we talked about this before, and we kind of touched on it with, if you book me now, reach out. We're happy to help you type of thing. For wedding day management, we'll talk to you a year in advance if you have a random question. So how often do you get clients that kind of have that tunnel vision and they seem like they're your only couple?
Ooh, that's a good topic, Jade.
Too much. Too much is the answer.
Too much. And it's like, you know, I get it because I was probably guilty of it. In fact, it's funny because like after my wedding, when I started doing this, I thought, oh man, I got to go back and think, how was I with all the, you know what I mean? And like my husband likes to make fun of me because of some things, but that's a whole other story. But anyways, yeah, it does happen a lot. And it's something that's real. Like you can't say it in that way. Like you can't say, by the way, I have, you know, 25 other couples or whatever. You have to be very sensitive in how you're approaching that. But what were you going to say on that topic? Because I'm curious.
It is really hard because before I guess kind of get into what recently happened with me, do your couples have your cell phone number at all or at any point or early?
Yeah. And I mean, I know that that's probably not the best thing to do, but it's just kind of like, I can't see myself carrying around two phones. I did for a job that I had, and it was kind of hell. I know people do it, and that's great, and I didn't start that way. I've had the same phone number since I was 16 years old, and I still have it, and usually people are respectful, but you do have those couples, and usually it is full planning, partial planning, where I want to say that they're taking advantage because maybe they don't mean to, and sometimes it's even like, okay, so, you know, I reach out to them, you know, directly with like a question or whatever, but when you're having like, you know, mini emails on your phone, like texts, that's when it gets tricky. Right. Because something could happen. Your phone could get tossed in the river, and then you don't have a collection of all the texts. Like, but email, you're going to have a trail no matter what.
So I think the biggest thing that we could just keep trying to tell our couples, and I think when I book a full scale or partial client, I need to say this way, way, way more up front because they have my cell phone too. And I do say, you know, feel free to text me if you need to.
Yes.
If it's a really big thing, like, yes, email me or try to email me as much as you can, but you can text me if you need to.
Yes.
Because I want to be there for my couples just like you do.
Yes.
And it's like, I feel like they need my cell phone, but don't text me once a week and say, can I call you today? Do you have time?
Oh, yes. That's hard too.
That's what's hard because it's like, well, okay, sure. What do you need when you probably could just answer my email? Yes.
Yeah, that's hard. I feel like, and those are those styles some people have, right? Some people, and I'm a talker, so I get it. And I can, you know, I'm fine to have, you know, a 5 to 10 minute conversation, but there are people who will just stretch that and it'll turn into an hour and it'll be its own meeting.
Yes.
So that's where it's really hard. Because sometimes I get it. Like, it's hard to describe in an email all the things that you're thinking in your head. It's sometimes easier just to get out in a phone call. And but yeah, that's when it's tricky. And especially, I don't know about you, but it happens so much on the weekend when you're either at a wedding or when you're finally freaking off.
Yeah.
And you want to just be with your family.
Yes. It's Sunday and I just want to have a fucking day to myself and my family. And they're, can I call you today? No, you actually can't. I love you, but no, please, dear God, no. And we're both moms, which we will get into.
Yeah.
So we're both working on borrowed time. It feels like constantly borrowed time. So we'll get into that. But I recently had one of my brides who I love so much. Like, I love all of you. I can't say it enough. Like, I literally love you all so much. Every now and then, though, I think they can forget she's a person. This is her job. Yeah. This is her, she also has a life outside of it. So
exactly.
I got an email at 4:00 one night, early evening, I'm sorry. So 4:00, and then it was 11 a.m. the next day.
Okay.
I got a text saying, did you get my email? Did you have a chance to review it?
Okay.
So that's less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
I did see it come in, but I am driving currently to a meeting. So I'm driving at this point when I get the text. And I said, I did see it come in. I haven't had a chance to review it yet. And she goes, okay, no problem. This would be easier. And sent me via text what she wanted me to review.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going to practice some Miss Rachel. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, like, blowing bubbles, whatever Miss Rachel said. Because I was like, okay, this is actually this is frustrating. So I purposely sat on the text and I didn't respond until I had truly a moment. Like, I'm thinking about another couple right now. I'm driving to their meeting. I'm mentally prepping about where we're at and planning. And the amount of details that we are juggling for all of our couples is the most that any vendor has to do. Like, it's just a fact. When you're a wedding planner, you're juggling all the details.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, like, I appreciate that. And I know that you want to get this done, but imagine your boss doing that to you. Think of it that way or something, right? Like, you have a full-time job or a 9 to 5 or whatever. And your boss is like, did you get my email? No? Okay, great. Review this text instead because you're busy. Look at my text.
Yeah.
Feels a little invasive.
It does. Yeah, it absolutely does. It's a little bit passive.
Yeah.
Almost like, well, I'm important, so this is what you're, instead of like, okay, thanks when you have time, just whatever. Yeah, totally.
And it's interesting that I think sometimes they genuinely don't think about that, or they're just like, oh, I just want to get this done. Like, wonder what Jade's doing, or is she busy, or whatever the case is. So they're like, let me just text you. But I don't know. I think both of us maybe, like I said, get slightly better on the boundary side of things. Now, I do know some wedding planners that refuse to give out their cell phone until a week or two before the wedding. And then I'm on the complete opposite end of that, where I don't fully agree with that either, personally.
Right. Yeah.
I just don't.
I think that would be really hard. I mean, even for wedding management, because things happen. I don't know. That's tough.
I have a fairly decent boundary where I can respond and be like, hey, I am walking out, or hey, I'm off today. I'm trying to take the day off today. Like, I'm decent at that, or I don't respond. And I love, thank you iPhone, thank you Apple for making it on iMessages where you can mark as unread now.
Love that.
So that helps me a lot. So I'll just like mark it as unread, or I'll get back to this when I have a moment. It's just... Listen, I'll give you my cell phone, but just don't forget that we take time off too. We need days off. We don't work Saturday through Sunday just because you're also off. Like, we don't work 9 o'clock at night all the time, and that's all we're asking.
That's it.
Just think about it before you say
a little bit of freedom there. Yeah, we're...
Just think about it a little bit, because we want to keep being those planners that give you our cell phone and you have access to us, but... Just a little bit of a boundary in return, I think, is kind of all we're asking for. Because your boss doesn't text you at 9 o'clock at night and say, hey, can you look at this? Because really quick.
I hope not.
If they do, you might want to think about finding a new job for real. Because I would not deal with that. So because, these texts are kind of cutting into our family time, like we said. Cutting into what we have going on and taking time off. And we're both moms.
Yeah.
And how old is your kiddo?
He's 3.
3. Okay. What's his name again?
Roman.
Roman. I love that. And you started your business, and then you had a kid after you started your business, right?
Yes.
So tell me about how that transition was for you, having the freedom to set your meetings when you needed to now it's all based around childcare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, didn't realize how hard that was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of lucky, though, because, when I first started, I definitely wasn't as busy as I am now.
Yep.
Or we'll say, I wasn't doing the in-depth things that I am now.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little bit more, relaxed in that way. But, yeah, didn't know. We had trouble conceiving. So it was almost like, we're going to do whatever we can. We don't care whatever season he comes in. And, of course, he came in May.
Yeah.
It's okay. It was crazy. And then I remember going to a wedding literally a month after I had given birth. Yeah. Well, actually, you're going to find this even funnier. I had given birth, and it was only, I want to say 2 weeks. I went to a rehearsal, and I had people doing the wedding the next day, and I had an emergency C-section. I'm at the rehearsal. I felt like I almost needed to be at that wedding because it was, kind of like a newish team. Mm-hmm. My husband worked, I think it was literally the week after I gave birth. Because, of course, I have all these weddings right around that time in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
He steps in the week after to help me, which was amazing.
Oh, your husband?
Yes.
What a good man.
I mean, well, he didn't have a choice. But,
with his hands tied behind his back, he came and helped me. Yeah,
he did. He does really well. It was funny because even the month before that, I did have him help me because I was super huge prego. And I'm putting escort cards out, and he's like, those aren't straight enough. I need to help you. I'm like, excuse me. So he's great.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. But anyways, getting back to that, what was I saying? Oh, so yes, it's just a world of difference. Mm-hmm. The balance is, I always say, what balance? You have to just do what's best for you at the end of the day. What about you? I mean, because when did you have Jax?
So Jax is going on 15 months now.
Okay.
15 months. So he's also a May baby.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. So thankfully last year was the booking season was always strange. And I always say some years you'll have, 3, 4 in July, and then up the next July you'll have 1, you know?
Oh,
so thank God I was kind of in that opposite of we had 2 in May, but it was strange. No one ever cancels. I've had 2 cancellations, and I had someone cancel, hey, we're canceling our wedding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was like, it's like God knew I needed that or something.
Yeah.
It was very, very strange. So the one that we did, I did a lot of the pre-planning, but it was very close to my due date. So my team kind of took it over, thankfully. But then I had a full-scale client the next month in June that I had to be at. So, it's hard because then we were kind of finalizing plans, 2-3 weeks into after giving birth. So you have to just kind of jump back in. I did my best to kind of have the boundaries and take some time off, and we finished as much as we could before my due date with that full-scale client. But it's hard because we don't have him in childcare.
Okay.
But I don't want to put him in full-time childcare because that's a me problem. I just feel like he's so young and he's just so sweet, and it's just I can't put him with other people yet. So we do have someone that comes to the house every so often, every so many days. We do have my mom's help once a week too. She's 45 minutes away, so she'll come to our house. But it's that I basically wait for my babysitter's availability for the month. She'll give me the days, and then I'm planning most of my meetings on those days. And then we get a lot of evening meetings in this business because you all work your 9 to 5, which is great, or you have your day job. And so you need to meet afterwards. So we have to meet you too, which means we're working a lot of random evenings. So usually, let's say I have a 10 a.m. meeting and then I have a 7:30 a.m. meeting. At that point, I try to make sure my husband's home because my husband also co-owns his own business and he's kind of all over the damn place. So
we are so similar.
It's crazy.
Okay, so yeah, you know that my husband also, it's kind of the same thing. So he works for a franchise, but he's an independent contractor. So what that means is he basically owns his own business without the benefits of it, which
swear though.
trying to change.
I get that.
Yeah, so that's the same thing because some nights like he won't be home till like 7 or 8. Last night, sometimes I have to put my kid to bed. That's like their routine. He'll like give him a bath, put him to bed, which is great because I like need a break at the end of the day.
Yes,
I'm sure
that's
you do
super
too.
nice.
You know how that is. But when it's like that long, it's rough. Anyways, yeah. So I'm in the same boat. We don't do full childcare either. We have sitters. He does go to their houses because he's been with the one for a while. But usually like 2 days a week. But like not even till 5, till like 3:30, 4. And then I got to pick him up. So he is going to preschool 2 days a week starting in the fall, which is crazy.
Aw, that's so sad.
And so that'll be, I know, it's.
But from a work standpoint, you're like, okay.
Happy sad, right? Yeah. It's just bittersweet.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, yes. And I'm kind of like, oh my God, he's getting so big. So it'll be nice for the business. But yeah, it's just so many emotions. It is. It's never, there's no easy like way. Because even when he does go to like kindergarten, first grade, like I'll still be sad.
I know. I know. I can't even think about that happening with Jax. It's so crazy. Like, time seriously flies. It flies. But how much working from home do you do while he's playing and you're by yourself?
It's tough. I do some like emails, things like that. But it honestly depends. Like, and it's changed, I would say, since he was an infant because like you're going to have those stages. They're going to keep changing. And as soon as you get used to one stage, something else is going to happen. So there's been times where like, oh, like he's really good at playing by himself. And then all of a sudden he gets more needy or gets into stuff. And then you have to be more aware. So you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants and do what you can. And I just try to get like the most important things done that I can, whatever. But, you know. It's hard to have phone calls or Zooms because he will try and get on the computer with me and hit buttons. And I'm like, oh. So I have to explain to every person. And then sometimes I'm like, do they judge me because I don't have full daycare, childcare? Yes. It's like, they shouldn't, but you feel that way. I don't know if you feel that way as a mom.
I do feel that way.
Do you feel the guilt like all the time? Like
constant
it never
guilt.
leaves your body.
It literally never leaves. And yes, how much are people judging? How much are people actually understanding? And I feel like a lot of my couples, thank God, are really understanding and sweet. And like they'll ask, how's Jason and Jax doing? How's the family doing? You know, it's really, really sweet. But you do feel guilty. So you're kind of stuck to scheduling all of the meetings that you can during naps. Does he still nap?
No. Hold on to that as long as you can, girlfriend.
You poor thing.
Yes, he is insane. Like my wild child.
Fuck, that's hard.
Stopped at 2. I don't know what point of 2 years old he stopped napping. But if he does nap, he won't sleep at night. Like he'll get up, and we've been having issues with that. But it's a whole other thing.
So you're not sleeping on top of it.
We
all live off coffee.
A little regression. We do. We live off of caffeine. That is true. Yes. Yeah.
That's hard that he doesn't nap. Oof. So then I get into my positions too, where, as I'm sure you do, where your husband has to be gone in the evening, or, and I feel bad for like our sitter, but we'll like try to set our days, and then some days my husband's like home until noon. But,
nice.
you know, like he'll have his days where it's like, oh, I don't have anything going on until noon. And it's like, okay, well, let me try to text our babysitter and be like, can you flex your day and change it now? And I feel so bad. But it's like, when it's two business owners like that, it's really just kind of hard. And she's been with us for a little bit over a year now. So she's kind of gotten used to it. Like, I understand you guys like have your businesses and things change and stuff. But we're constantly, I can't say it enough, working on borrowed times as stay-at-home working moms. That's what I say we are.
Yeah.
It's a really good term, right?
I like that. Yeah.
Stay-at-home working moms. So one thing that I can't stand that happens is when vendors will like cold call you. Does that happen a lot? Like they'll just call you randomly to
talk?
Out
of the blue. Sometimes. More or less the week of the wedding, which kind of is a little bit
expected. That's kind of a given. That's a given.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really care though. I'll just be like, you're going to hear him screaming in the background, making all the noise. Like it is, a lot of them have kids, and the ones that don't, like, whatever. They're going to have to just deal with it.
Yeah. I can't stand it. I hate getting a call that like wasn't on my schedule for the most part. Like when it's someone that just wants to talk about something that's a 5-minute conversation, or it's an email. Like I had a hair a hairstylist, like a beauty team, call me that I've never worked with before. And I emailed her, hey, these are how many girls. Can you just give me a timeline? I never had this issue with beauty teams. Typically, they just email me a timeline and they say, okay, yeah, for that many girls, this is how long it's going to take.
Okay.
She's like, give me a call. Okay. So I called her, didn't pick up. Days go by.
Oh, no.
It was
That's the worst.
so many phone tags. I'm not kidding you, Emily, to get on the phone finally. And I waited until I had a sitter to call her because I was like, if she wants to talk to me so bad, it must be pretty pressing. So I don't want my son crawling up my leg. Let me see how I can have this conversation. Like, finally get a hold of her. 5-minute conversation.
Oh my God.
5-minute conversation. Okay, yeah, so that many girls. Okay, great. And this is the address again. I'm like, this was all in the email. This was all in the email. All you had to do was respond and say, great, got it. We need 5 hours for hair and makeup.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Wow.
It was so annoying. It was so annoying. And I was obviously so kind, and I'm always so kind, but not only couples, but vendors, man. Like, I don't know, just like the epitome of it could have been an email. Like, we are not all not parents. We are not all like, our kids aren't in full-time daycare. It's just, I don't know. It's just like a time respect thing. We don't all work on the same clock. We don't all work on the same,
right,
whatever. Like some days I'm working 3 to 8, 3 to 9, just because that's when my babysitter can come, or that's what my husband's home, or whatever. Like it's all just different.
Yes.
And I don't know how to get that across to people, but at the same time, when you're booking people, I feel guilty because I don't want to put it out there that I am a mom, because I feel like people won't go with me if they know I have a kid. Do you feel that way at all?
Yes. And I just, it is so ridiculous to say that out loud, but it is so true. It's like, oh, so does that mean that, they're not going to be right? And it's like,
which is shitty.
Yeah. And now I'm wondering, I'm like, well, usually in my consults, I do tell people, because if he is there with me and I'll say, hey, warning, if you hear my son or whatever, like, it's just my 3-year-old or whatever. But now you have me thinking, I'm like, but you know what? If they don't book you for that, fuck that. Like,
amen.
Like,
amen.
They're probably not going to be a good client, honestly.
Amen.
They're not going to be that understanding about,
Amen to that.
Yeah.
I feel that way. And I feel like, so not only are we mothering our children, sometimes I feel like we have to mother other vendors.
Oh, yeah.
So this is kind of one of the last things I wanted to get in with you, because this just kind of recently happened. And this happens a lot. And as wedding planners, we are advocates for our couple. We're advocates for their family. And we're also advocates for other vendors.
Right.
And there's that line on a wedding day where, you want to make sure literally everyone's happy, because we work as a team as vendors.
Right.
There's not one person that's more special than the other. Like, it doesn't work that way. We're all here to make this wedding day perfect. So we find ourselves in this position sometimes where it's just like, I don't know. We're doing a lot for vendors too, which is a good thing. One thing that happened more recently that I was like, dude, I don't know how I feel about this is, and I want to get your thoughts and your take on this, is vendor meals.
Okay.
And advocating for vendors and their vendor meal. Have you been in any weird positions where someone was upset about a meal, but they come to you?
Oh, yes. When you say, do you mean vendors coming to me?
Yes.
Yes. So because they weren't able to eat at the time that they wanted to, that worked for them. Is that what you're saying?
Anything related around a vendor meal.
Okay. Yes.
Anything. Okay.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So last year, and I'll just say it because I really don't care.
Yeah.
It was Club at Blackthorn. I actually had 3 there in a row, which was insane. I don't even know
wow.
how.
Yeah.
So Bistro to Go is, I think, their normal.
Okay.
And I love them. They're great. However, we had issues with the staff not feeding everybody, and I think, or feeding vendors after. And these are big weddings. They're normally there because it's such a big space, like 200 people or, around that. So after the first time, I want to say what happened. We mentioned it. They said things would change. And then the second time it was like even worse. So then actually I got on a call with Nikki, the owner, and I was like, hey, this is a problem because photographers especially, I don't even care about myself. I honestly care that the photographer, because they don't have much time. So they actually redid their whole process. And what they're doing now is they're doing like a buffet for all the vendors. So instead of if it's plated meals for everybody else, they set up a buffet because the way that venue is, there's like 2 kitchens in one of the kitchens, and they keep it hot for like, I don't know, like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then vendors can come get their meal and it's hot whenever.
That's nice.
Isn't that a cool idea?
That's really nice.
And so I applauded her for that, and she, profusely apologized and was like, this is what we're going to do, I think, for all weddings, like for vendors from now on. I was like, I think that's perfect. And so that was how it was then, I think, the 3rd time. But yeah, and that's changed. Now, I mean, there's definitely other instances where they're not going to be flexible with you, and I probably would never recommend those caterers because usually they're not, But I do try to advocate for, like I said, especially photographer and then DJ, I guess,
100%.
too.
100%. I, Dawn Derbyshire was on the podcast last week, and we talked about vendor meals, and, from a photography standpoint, that she was saying, if something happens and I don't get a meal, I'm not going to die. Which I was like, yeah, I get that. So wedding planners, we're on site usually. I always say our average wedding day is 12 hours. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
So that is a really long time. So I actually probably will pass the fuck out if I don't eat something.
Oh.
I'll eat your whole damn cookie table if I have to. But I am really more laid back with like what the meal is. I think some venues that offer like that cold meal, like that sandwich.
Oh, I'm not looking forward to that. I have that, I think, happening at Phipps.
I don't think they do not educate the couple is what I think happens on that you can pay for them to eat the hot guest meal. That's what I think kind of happens, because we were at a country club a couple years ago where we all got a sandwich, but I was there for the site visit, and I remember the venue coordinator asking my couple, okay, so the vendor meal options are this sandwich, a club, or this or this.
Yeah.
They stated just like, this is your meal.
That's exactly what they did. Yep.
This is what you can give them. Now, every now and then I have had like couples of mine be like, that feels strange. Like, why am I going to give you a sandwich when everyone else is eating really well?
Yeah.
Which is so nice. And I'm just like, listen, I'll eat your sandwich. I will. Oh, is it going to be great? Probably not, but I'll eat it, In that scenario, I had a vendor. Now, I love this vendor so much, and he didn't bother me with it. So that's why I was like, I love you even more.
Yeah.
He went straight to the venue coordinator and was like, this isn't in my contract. This isn't what I eat. Like, okay, like this is what I'm eating. I've been here all day. And I was like, oh my God, thank you for not bothering me. Like, literally, thank you for just handling this yourself.
That's amazing, yeah.
It was really, really nice. But you get to the position where they will come up to you and they're like, listen, I didn't get my hot guest meal. And it's like, I get it, man, but like, you're a big boy, you're a big girl. I'm sitting down finally on my feet. I've been busting my ass all day. Can you go take care of it? Like, can you go say something?
Or why didn't you think of this before?
Why
didn't you email me before? Most of the time, I'm going to ask them what your preference is. If I don't, but still, like, that's something. How many weddings have you done?
That's where we kind of get into different services and different packages. Like for a wedding day management couple, we're not really talking to the vendors about what meal you want. Like, that's just, I'm not, at least.
Yeah.
Like, that's not part of kind of what it is. But the other week, we were in a position where the vendor wanted to add on a guest meal kind of later. I saw the emails. The venue must not seen the email. I don't know. That venue was really bad at kind of emailing and answering things anyways. But I saw the couple added it on. We get to the point where the venue served us. It was nice, and I told her, hey, like, the meals are coming if you want to eat now. We sit down, we all start eating, and then that person comes like 10 minutes later and there's no meal for her. And I'm like, at that point, the staff was busting their ass, doing dinner service. They're going up and down steps with huge trays, and you're looking at me because you want me to stop them and ask them for your meal. Ooh. Right? I was like, so that's where that awkwardness of, we're an advocacy of everybody. We want everyone to be happy. Right. And I'm in this position currently where I do want you to eat because we're all eating. I really, really do. But this venue, like, this whole staff is literally, like, they're all sweating. You could see it in their faces. Like, dinner service is it's their big thing that they've been prepping for all day.
Right.
It was huge. And if they weren't going up and downstairs, like, maybe. And I was just like, okay, like I'll try to keep an eye out for the manager, like when she comes back down, and I'll try to get you your meal. And the vendor's just like circling around me, basically.
Ugh.
And I look at my assistant, and I was sitting with the DJ, and I was like, sometimes this is the stuff that it's like, I just wish you could stand by the door and ask them for your meal. Like, and I just wish you could do that. Like, please, like, I also need a break. Like, can you please let me just sit down? I'm eating my meal. I've been here since 10 a.m. It's 6. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. So it's just that being an advocate for everybody, but I think sometimes
like they take advantage, and it's not.
Yes.
It's kind of like, oh, well, they're the planner, so they're going to just handle that. Like, that's how that's going to,
Yes.
But yeah, you're a vendor. You're getting paid to be here.
Yeah.
Why don't you take step up a little bit, take some responsibility, I mean, that's kind of why, like, we do try to take care of these things ahead of time, but yeah,
we do our best.
We do our best.
We're all just doing our best, and we're all working with each other. And yeah, I think just kind of, I don't know, understanding that the wedding planner on site also isn't your mom. That's it.
Such a good point.
That's it. I'm already mom and kiddo.
This is why I come to work, to get a break.
Honest to God. A vendor and I said that on Saturday. Yeah. We were like, oh, a day we have to work? Oh, gee. Like, yeah, like, we're already momming our husbands half the time, too. Like, dear God, like, just give us a moment. It's like we don't want to have to babysit you all. That's all.
Oh, my God.
It's just a polite conversation. But I think this has been wonderful. And I so appreciate you joining the podcast, Emily. It's really means a lot. So
thank you for having me.
Of course. Events by Emily, eventsbyemilym.com. If you think you hate me, but you love Emily,
you could never hate Jade. Oh, my God.
Book her. If I'm unavailable, see what Emily has going on. She's just the best. So thanks so much for joining me today.
Love you, girl.
I love you too. Thank you.